Welcome to another episode of Progress, Potential, and Possibilities, discussions with fascinating people designing a better tomorrow for all of us. I'm your host, Ira Pastor.
Welcome, everybody, again to another episode of our show, bringing another really awesome guest for you today, a return guest to our show, which we're really excited to have. Today, we have the honor of being rejoined on the show by Dr. Ellen de Brabander, who is Executive Vice President, Research, Development, and Regulatory Affairs at Elanco Animal Health, one of the world's largest animal pharma companies that develop, manufacture, sell medicines, vaccines, other healthcare products for both pets, companion animals, as well as farm and livestock. Previously, we put her tenure at PepsiCo, where she spent several years as Senior Vice President for R&D, the global food and beverage company, having company-wide responsibility for food safety, quality, regulatory affairs, R&D, digital transformation, and prior to her time at Pepsi, led various R&D organizations, including at Merial, Intervet, and as well as the chemical company DSM. Dr. de Brabander earned her doctorate cum laude in bioorganic chemistry from Leiden University, went on to do her postdoc work in molecular biology at MIT, and we're honored to have her back on the show. A lot of new things to get into, a lot of interesting topics. Dr. Ellen de Brabander, thank you so much for taking time to come back on the show.
Well, thank you. Happy to be here again with you, Ira. Yeah.
Well, yeah, always great having you, and really looking forward to getting into some new topics with you. As we followed your story over the years, from specialty chemical into animal health, and ultimately, had some great discussions about consumer health and consumer packaged goods while at Pepsi. Take a little bit just to reintroduce yourself, and ultimately why at this point you decided, well, it's 2021 now, you decided to head back into the world of animal health, which was near and dear to you.
Sure. Yeah, right now, I think it's 35 years ago since I joined industry. So I've been with listed companies, indeed, for now 35 years, different companies, different industries. But the common theme really has been innovation and R&D. So in the life science sector, in DSM and material sector, then in animal health for with two companies, Intervet, that currently is part of Merck Animal Health, and Merial, that currently is part of Boehringer Ingelheim, and those are leading companies in animal health, and I was leading their R&D their R&D organizations at that point in time. Then I've been indeed in the food and beverage part for 8 years in different roles, different locations, and now I'm happy to be back in the animal health part. Again, leading the R&D organization. Yeah, animal health is indeed a sector. If you are in industrial R&D, I think it's one of the most attractive sectors to be in for a number of reasons, I would say. It is a highly regulated industry where innovation does matter. And so you will not be successful if you don't come up with innovation. And there's a strong need for innovation. There's still a lot of unmet needs for the different animal species there. And the exciting part is that those needs actually now can be addressed way more effectively than, say, 10 years ago, because some of the technologies that you need are more ready now than they were 10 years ago. Yep. So in essence, it is a very attractive space because in essence, people who are working in industrial R&D and industrial innovation they all are eager to make an impact. You know, there's a reason why you are the part of this type of organization. And making an impact is truly very well possible in animal health. So most people who spend their career in an R&D organization in animal health have worked on products that in the end do reach the animals, so truly make a difference in animals' lives. And as we all know very well, that's not the case in many other industries. Many people who work in human pharma R&D organization, maybe for decades, never touch a product that ever reaches a patient. So that's truly one of the pluses of animal health. And at the same time, it's truly science-based. So this is not like in a couple other industries where you mix a little bit and, you know, yeah, you have another flavor or another. No, this is truly heavily science-based. So it's almost the sweet spot for scientists who still like to use and leverage the state-of-the-art science, but in a way that in the end, it does make an impact in society. And in our case, the impact truly is on animals' lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, you know, drilling down on a lot of the different sort of areas of innovation that you're involved in across the different business units. You know, it's interesting because, you know, you are in, you know, these two major sectors, as I mentioned in the intro, in terms of one hand, you know, companion animal health, and the other side, but farm and food production. And while, you know, clearly there's a lot of overlap there in terms of, you know, a lot of the targets and what is involved in keeping animals healthy. Ultimately, sort of the end game, you know, are slightly different in terms of one hand, we're very interested in seeing our dogs and cats live longer, having higher quality of life. On the other hand, you know, the farm animals, you know, we have an end use, of course, but we also obviously they're connected to so many other things and turning the environment in terms of One Health, which we'll be getting into. Talk a little bit about how you know, balance these two strategies under sort of the overall R&D umbrella that you're responsible for now.
Yeah, great question. Yes, absolutely. I think we heavy focus on addressing the needs for both pets and farm animals. There is a lot of difference there in the type of products there, but what is common is that both industries are highly regulated. And when I say highly regulated, I really mean it. What not many people maybe not expect is that, especially for farm animals, the regulatory requirements to get the product approved to be used are even more demanding than to get a human pharma product approved. So for a human pharma product, usually it's enough, it's still challenging, but that's enough to show it works and it is safe. And we are able to manufacture that with the right quality in a consistent way at scale. All of that you need to do for farm animal products as well. But on top of that, you also need to demonstrate that it is safe for the environment. And so you have to demonstrate what happens with this product if I feed it to a cow, and what happens, does it end up in the environment, and what's the impact there. Also, you have to understand what happens with the product if it is inside the cow or inside the pig, or so from a food safety point of view, because as you know, in the farm animals, they do end up in the food chain. So it does matter what happens with the drug inside the animal, and are even the metabolites safe. So that all then translates into additional requirements that you have to meet before you get your product approved. And that then does translate in truly a long journey before you reach the finish line. But I think it's important to mention that there are two elements that make actually working in animal health innovation very attractive. One, it is actually very early on, you can start your new idea, your new hypothesis, your new drug in the target animal. So that is very different from human pharma, where of course you first start, you know, in all kind of other animal species before finally you say, let me test in the humans. And then you are already 5, 6, 7 years underway. We can do that very early on. And that's a big advantage, because that, as in essence, truly increases the chance, the probability of success. So what is attractive in animal health innovation is that, yes, the journey is long, but the probability of success is way higher if you know what you are doing. If you know what you are doing, and very early on, you can truly filter out, by doing your proof of concept in the target animal, filter out and identify the ones that potentially can make it to the finish line. So the journey is long, but the probability to do that is higher than, for example, in human pharma. The second element that makes it more attractive is that, yes, we have to do a lot of clinical trials to demonstrate with client-owned animals or with animals in the lab, whether or not the target product is safe and does work as intended. But we can do it with far less animals than human pharma trials. And that then translates in a lower cost for the development. So in essence, what we say, we have a combination of a long journey before you have truly demonstrated everything that the regulatory agencies would like you to demonstrate. But the probability to do that, reach that successfully, is higher than, for example, human pharma. And the cost to do that is lower, because there is less attrition and because the studies are less expensive. So that, in essence, is an interesting mix versus a couple other industries.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting, as you're mentioning that, I'm just looking at some of the candidates that you have taken to market. There's a lot of other interesting things here that we don't normally think about that you're capable of doing. And, just as some example, for instance, in human pharma, as combination products, really, everyone's excited about it, but very difficult to do. And this really interesting Credelio Quattro product, which is a combination of various antiparasitics, which again you developed as a combination. Zenrelia, which this for allergic dermatitis. I mean, this is a repurposed JAK inhibitor that so you were able to discover this works a lot better in animals than it does in humans. And so sort of this whole repurposing theme, again, exciting, but sometimes it's not usually done in human pharma. You're capable of doing. Talk a little bit about some of these creative approaches, because I think they're kind of interesting and sort of speak to that ability to do things that we don't normally think about being able to do in human pharma.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's focus on a couple categories. When you talk about animal health, I think it's good to remember one of the lessons I was taught, really one of my first weeks in animal health, where one of my advisors said to me, Ellen, just remember, animal health is not only about the health of animals. In the end, it is about people, and usually it's the owners, prepared to pay for the health of the animals. That's what you have to remember. That's why, in essence, we focus only on the happy few animals, the cats, the dogs, the cows, the chicken, the pigs. But, there are hundreds of species in nature that never will get any treatment. So I think that is one. And even if you look at, okay, what type of diseases then are being treated, for example, in cats and dogs, the biggest category not necessarily is the category where you say that is the most severe disease for the cats and dogs. Those are diseases where indeed also the owners would like the pets to be treated. So the number one category in pets is parasiticides. And yes, that is an issue for the pets, but it is equally an issue for the owners. Owners don't like to have flea and ticks in their living room. And so it is, so it has developed over the years to the number one category in the pets business. Also because there's every time there's new innovation needed to address resistance and and new needs there, more convenience or longer acting. But in essence, if you say, okay, where are those active ingredients coming from? That's interesting. They actually, to some extent, do come from the crop science industry. The crop science industry, they have their own discovery in this space, and some of their lead molecules actually may not work as well for the crops, but actually work very well for pets. And then, you know, the current family of actives that is most widely used right now to address fleas and ticks in cats and dogs is indeed the group of isoxazolines, and they do come originally from the crop science industry, and now the animal health industry is working on it to make the next generation of isoxazolines, to basically bring it to the next. But the original invention did come from there, and that's perfectly fine. Animal health is not an industry, because it's important to remember, this is an industry where people pay for the products out of pocket. So it's different from human pharma or other industries. So in essence, we have severe, well, limitations, I would say. It's actually a healthy industry that people pay for the value of the product. But that basically means that, yeah, the restrictions in terms of what the value, what the price can be, what the cost can be for a new medication are very different than from human pharma. And you can, you cannot have the same treatment cost for a dog as for a human pharma product. So that truly has an impact on what and how and when we can develop. And it has an impact on, for example, the discovery engine that we have, that is just by default smaller than what is happening in the human pharma space. So we are a smaller industry, and because of that, it is very logic, and that's exactly what you see, that we try to leverage basic knowledge from other industries, for example, crop science. So the crop science spill over to animal health is actually a logic one. By the way, vice versa is happening as well. So it's not that animal health always borrows or builds on knowledge from other industries, but you very nicely see right now, we had a nice example last year, that actually our Credelio active ingredient is now being used in a human pharma application that actually has got approval there. So you nicely see now that indeed you see the crossovers between industries, where active ingredients from developed in one space, where it may not exactly fit, actually fit very well in another space, and can cross over, and it can go between crop science and animal health and human pharma. But indeed, the parasiticide field, it's logic, and exactly what you see, that indeed there is a crossover between crop science as well as animal health. And parasiticide is one of those spaces that is not only relevant for companion animals, but also very relevant for farm animals. So even there you see crossovers. But of course, you have to keep in mind that the constraints in terms of the cost that are affordable for farm animal treatments are different than for companion animals. So even though sometimes you say, I have an active that could work very well in a farm animal, actually still in the end it's not being developed because there is the cost level would not fit the requirements there. So that is one space, that is the parasiticide space, and an important space for basically every species. And with the global warming, the climate change, you see that's only getting more so. You see more strains and viruses and parasites and bacteria moving to spaces where they were not in the past. Another space that's very important, especially for the pets, is what you could call, in general, pet therapeutics. And that is where we look more closely at the human pharma. So where, of course, human pharma is way bigger and more advanced, a lot of knowledge there. And you see that in a couple areas, actually, the knowledge that has been built in the human pharma, we can use and we can leverage and apply then in the animal space. And a nice example is the one that you just mentioned for dermatology, the JAK inhibitors.
Yeah.
Where again, if you keep in mind why why is that an interesting space for the pet? If you look at pet owners, they truly are concerned if you have your dog around or your cat around you, and you see that, you know, if there is a skin issue, or you see that that your animal, your pet is truly suffering from itch and allergy, you see that immediately, even as a parent. And it's actually the #1 reason for pet owners to visit a vet, is because they see that their pet has dermatology issues, allergy or skin issues or scratching, and that is, of course, a reason not only for the pet but also for the pet owner to say, well, let's see how we can address that. And what we now have seen is that indeed the JAK inhibitors are actually developed originally in the human space, are also a great treatment option for dogs. And well, 10 years ago, there was the first one developed in animal health, and then as Elanco, we recently developed the second one approved there. And maybe to make one more comment on that space, because it really is an interesting observation here. That I don't know of any other industry that if you see there is a breakthrough innovation, that it almost takes a decade before there is the #2. And actually, there absolutely is a need for a #2, because, you know, it isn't, no one is truly excited if there is just one option for treatment for such a long time. But it is a reminder how complex it is to basically get the product approved. So it is, so that happened with the JAK inhibitor. It also recently happened with the monoclonal antibody.
Yep.
The Boehringer is a product that got approved recently. Our Elanco monoclonal antibody also against dermatology. It is a differentiated product, but it's in a space where 10 years ago there was just one product approved, and for 10 years there was not a second product. Only now, again, it takes 10 years to basically, and it's not because of lack of interest. Everyone sees, hey, that is a space where where innovation is needed, more innovation is needed, and still then it does take almost 10 years to get that product approved. And so these are two examples where, in essence, yes, we see that we leverage expertise originally from the human pharma, and then apply it and further develop it for the animal space. And actually, truly, in a very effective way, you see, you know, how the life of pets is changing because of those treatments.
Yep. And you know, continuing along that line, you know, because you're mentioning the complexity, and one thing I didn't want to overlook, and we've chatted about this a bit in the past, is sort of the complexity and issues involved in the sort of running the pivotal studies when we get into these pet therapeutics and, you know, companion animals. And, you know, you've always made the point that this is animal pharma is not easy in general, but when you're dealing with a pet, which, as you pointed out, is equivalent to a child in someone's family, it's not about just, hey, let's just test whatever we want to test. These are serious clinical trials, and I'm just interested, you know, in learning from you a little bit about some of the challenges that occur in a, whatever, if you call it a phase 3 pivotal study in dogs, and a little bit how, you know, in 2026 now, you know, we hear all about companion diagnostics and remote clinical trials and all that, but what's exciting happening on the clinical development front, specifically in terms of how these clinical trials are run in 2026?
Yeah, it's a great question. And maybe a step back, as we said in the beginning of this episode, you know, everyone sees and understands that you can only be successful in animal health, and probably in other industries as well, but for sure here, if you are able to deliver innovation. So, and you don't need too many brainstorm sessions to identify what exactly is needed there. It's a little bit like when there was COVID, you know, it was immediately clear, oh, we need a vaccine. You don't need brainstorm sessions or consumer trials or whatever. No, so it's immediately clear what is needed. what is the unmet need? What is the challenge actually is to find the solution and demonstrate that the solution is effective. That is different from other industries. For example, in the food and beverage industry, that exactly is a different situation where the main question is basically to find what is the problem to be solved? What is it that the consumers truly need? Huh? And then once you have identified that, it's usually not that complicated to come with the solution. But indeed, in those industries, the main question is identifying, it's the inside, okay, what exactly is the need? Not just for one season or one quarter, but truly a need that will stick, that is there to stay. Because most innovation in those areas, they are on shelf for 1 year and next year they are gone. And that, of course, is a very ineffective, a very expensive way if every year you have to change your portfolio. That's different here. So here, in essence, yes, we do know pretty well what are the unmet needs, what needs to be addressed. Still, then it's important to be as specific as you can be, because as we said, it's one thing that you know what you are targeting. It's another thing to make it happen, and it needs to happen. These are projects that can take up to 10 years. So you obviously don't want to start over every other year. They say, "Oh, I changed my mind. I have a new leader. Let's go left." No, you want to continue. That's for a long time, and make sure you have the funding available for a long time to actually bring that to the finish line. And absolutely if you can do that faster and in a more efficient way, then you should do that. And I think a lot of opportunities do exist, and we as Elanco have very much focused on that. I think what we have demonstrated in the last couple of years, we had done the acquisition of Boehringer. That was 5 years ago. That was a natural moment to kind of rebuild one Elanco R&D. We said, okay, we have a major acquisition, another smaller acquisition, all that together. Let's now make the one Elanco R&D and define new ways of working. That's what we have done. And we have actually developed a very efficient delivery, I would say, or development organization, where in essence, we have demonstrated that each of our high impact projects in the development pipeline that were there in early development pipeline 4 years ago, they have reached the finish line, kind of confirming what we earlier said, that if you have your act together, then this is a very effective industry where you have a high probability of success that your projects in development, even if they are early development, do reach the finish line. But that is 100% probability of success is kind of exceptional, but a high probability, yes, that is doable if you have your organization together. So that's what we have demonstrated there. That's what we have built with people across the globe, and we are further optimizing that, the way how we work. Because in essence, if you can do it faster, innovation is a race, that absolutely makes a difference. If you can do it in a more resource efficient way, in essence, you can do more projects. There is no magic there. So there is a lot to win if you truly streamline that process in the development engine, by making the right decisions and indeed progressing. And of course, in the development part, as you already indicated, there are basically two main focus areas there. One is the clinical trials, demonstrate that it is safe and has efficacy. The other is the scale up, the CMC part, demonstrate that you can produce it, scale it up in a consistent way, can analyze it, can demonstrate that, yes, this is all within the specs defined. When you look at the clinical trials, there's a lot about data management here. So AI, will truly be another, enabler for next level innovation in animal health. And for sure, in the clinical space, where it is about doing the design more efficiently, but especially doing the data management and the document management, writing and summarizing all the study reports and interpreting that, do the statistics, all those steps that usually take a lot of time. That's where there's a lot to win from EI. But talking about AI, yeah, we expect that truly to be high impact in our innovation engine in different areas, absolutely in the regulatory space, and absolutely in the discovery space, and absolutely in the development space. So those are, I would say, the main spaces. When you talk about regulatory, maybe a few words there.
Sure.
As we said, yes, it is a highly regulated industry. We are a global company, but unfortunately, the regulations are not global. So every country has their own agency, almost every country. And each agency does have their own requirements for submitting a dossier and what exactly should be in. So in essence, what we try to do, or what we have implemented, is accelerating the rollout of those innovations. And I think we have demonstrated that with Zenrelia, where we applied a new strategy to basically submit the dossiers in the international markets in parallel to what we did do in the US. So usually you say, well, let's first safeguard US, let's get the approval there, and then we do the submission in other geographies. We did all of that in parallel, and the result was that within 18 months, we actually did have approval for Zenrelia in the top 8 markets. And that was truly a nice achievement, because, as we said, innovation is a race there. But now the next level will be that, we will apply AI to submit the dossier faster. And of course, if you submit the dossier faster, you expect an approval faster. So it's instead of doing, because submitting a dossier was a very manual process with all the pieces that you say, okay, for this country, I need these pieces and these pieces of the data. If you can basically automate it and leverage AI, that you know exactly, okay, for this country, these are the requirements, and here are the different data sets that we have, and then you can more easily build the dossier faster and, of course, submit it. So that is in the regulatory space where absolutely you see, not just us, I think it's obvious that AI will be high impact there. In the discovery space, absolutely, it's obvious as well. I think everyone is talking about AI, how it can accelerate the discovery. And we are using that as well. It's good to mention that, again, given our scale in animal health, we are very selective on where we do discovery. We have multiple species and, of course, multiple disease areas. We don't have enough resources to really do discovery for each of those different unmet needs. So we are very targeted. We say, okay, we focus, for example, on monoclonal antibodies. That's a clear focus areas where we say, yeah, that is where we have built a platform in-house, and we want to come up with new innovations from monoclonal antibodies, not only in the derm space that where we basically just got Boehringer approved, and Quattro, we got approval from that one recently as well, but also in other spaces. And that is where AI will help us to truly discover, the monoclonal and optimize the best molecules there from scalability and from an efficacy point of view. So that's what we do there. But also in clinical trial, maybe coming back to that one, we have those clinical trials with hundreds of animals where you then have to observe. For example, in the dermatology area, if you have treated an animal, is there less scratching? Is there less itching, less, and No, there are ways to do that using AI programs. So instead of having a person just watching the animal for hours and days and say, oh, yes, he is scratching, he said, no, let's use AI programs there so that it is more reliable, better quality. So in essence, it is interpreting the data from the clinical trials in a more robust and faster way. So yeah, that's in essence where we see that the way how to do the development and even the discovery, it will change, and the results will be, at least that's what we expect, it will be faster and more effective. And we expect next level discoveries here.
Yeah, again, it's amazing what AI does. It touches nowadays, but clearly these are real world examples. So it's not, it's nice to say this is just beyond theory. It's real world applications, especially in terms of real world evidence in these clinical trials. So that's again an exciting piece of the whole process. It's
as you said, it's happening as we speak. It's not just hypothetical. And we know that basically everyone is doing it in their own way, trying to figure out how and where does it work.
Right. As you're talking about monoclonal antibodies, it gets me thinking about another really two crucial themes into our show in the last couple of years, and those have been the concept of One Health and then antimicrobial resistance, a major sort of unacknowledged pandemic that it's headed our way as society. And you're right in the thick of all this. I know you recently developed this One Health Innovation District, I think in collaboration with Purdue University. But I'd love to get your perspective, whether it's on spillover or whether it's on, proper antimicrobial stewardship. I mean, you're right there in the intersection, since as a company, you have to develop these novel antimicrobials at the same time, deal with the stewardship issues. You have this really interesting sort of segment of the portfolio that are the non-antibiotic solutions, like microbiome products, like intestinal integrity products, which are kind of cool. I don't know if they apply to humans as well, but and then the third part of that, and then I'll be quiet and let you go with this. Vaccine development. You're in the thick of vaccine development as well, but you also have to think of all the zoonotic stuff that maybe we've never seen. How we deal with those strange viruses that we don't want to go through that One Health cycle. Take a little time and sort of walk through how you think about both the issues of One Health and antimicrobial resistance in 2026.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great topic. We have been talking about One Health for at least the last 15 years. But it's kind of difficult to bring it to life. There's so much in it. So I think it's one of those areas where, it's good to come with real life examples. And then, you see how it can work. And real life examples usually only work if indeed the different parts of the One Health, first of all, do know each other. Second of all, do talk to each other. So that's why we are actually excited about the One Health Innovation District, because indeed that is just one space there where you say we do have the crop science companies, and we do have animal health, and we have human pharma, and we have industry, and we have academics, and we have startups. So we have basically all the different players and everyone looking from their own lens. And then you expect by just the interaction between the different players that there will be crossover. Crossovers between the industries has happened, as we discussed earlier in this episode already on the Credelio as a recent example. Yep. It did take a long time, and it was more dependent on, kind of was not planned for. It was almost by accident that it did happen. And now you would almost foster an environment where you expect this to happen more often and more naturally, because the different players do interact with each other. There are a number of areas on antibiotics. I think there's not just one solution there. I think it's clear that we still need antibiotics, whether you like it or not. We need antibiotics, and even new antibiotics. And we are proud that last year we did get the approval of a new farm animal antibiotic for the first time in more than a decade or so, because you need kind of new innovation there as well to address resistance. That is an antibiotic used for cattle and swine against respiratory diseases. So yes, you do need innovation there as well. Very much also encouraged by, for example, the FDA. That is, they see the need, but it is complex and challenging. So there's not a lot of activity. That's true for human pharma. It's true in the animal pharma as well. Not a lot of activity to come up with next generation antibiotics. Of course, there is a strong focus on vaccines. Vaccines can prevent. And we are, as the Elanco, also focusing on that. I'm actually proud to share the progress we have made in vaccines. We have a major site in the US, Fort Dodge. That is a site that has been owned by different companies that usually then trigger some of course, change the strategy and new ways of working. So now it has been part of Elanco for a number of years, and we have seen in the last year that we did get 2 new very nice vaccines approved, and we expect more to come. In 2024, we had another farm animal respiratory vaccine approved. So these are clear confirmations that yes, we are actively working on next generation and innovative vaccines, both for pets as well as for farm animals. Sometimes it's addressing new pathogens. Sometimes it is a combination. Sometimes it is addressing more convenience issues like lower volume or injection-free. So then it's an oral vaccine. So these are the type of innovations that we see, but these are very much helping to address the convenience question for both for the animal as well as for the customers there. So yes, vaccines are important for animal health, and it will stay that way. There's innovation need for that going forward because there's always a need for new strains or more convenience there. Antibiotics is indeed a need. Of course, the use needs to be well governed via the responsible use, and we are an active member of that. It is in everyone's interest to use those antibiotics in a responsible way.
One other really interesting area, I a couple of years ago I had the opportunity to interview Marcus Remmers on a show, talking about sort of this area of climate smart livestock solutions, and I know that you now are a collaborator with them on this Bovaer product, which was introduced a couple of years ago. But I'd love to talk a little bit about this because this is, it's not just an interesting example of, it's not really a therapeutic product, right? It's a climate product, but it really shows that your commitment to, when we think about something like methane reduction, and we don't think about the amount of methane that cattle produces around the world. But say if you were, I know this falls sort of under your future of protein business, but take us down this path as well, because I think it's a sort of one area that we don't think as much about, but it's very important to you as a company, and it's a neat collaboration.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as you know, I know Marcus very well because he used to work with me in Merial. Right. When you talk about innovation in farm animal, in essence, it's almost a no-brainer what I say right now, but you need to add to somehow address an unmet need. That is, and okay, what can be the needs? Can be one of 4 things. One is, okay, you prevent the animals from becoming sick, for example, vaccines. Second, okay, you address food safety. For example, salmonella is a clear example there. There is a salmonella bacteria is not so much impacting the animal, but absolutely it's impacting the humans, the food safety part. Third, you develop something to treat because the animal is sick, for example, an antibiotic. So it is for treatment. So prevention, treatment, food safety. And then in the last couple of years, indeed, there is a new need to be addressed. And that is the sustainability dimension. There is we know there's a growing need for farm animal proteins. But it's also well understood that the way we farm the animals actually should change because of the methane emission. Where we say, is there a way to farm the animals that will mitigate the methane emission and still ensures that we have healthy animals? So Bovaer is indeed a clear solution there. It's actually the only one approved across the globe and is also available in the US. Has been discovered by DSM and Elanco, DSM Firmenich and Elanco. We partner on that one in the US. We have been able to get the approval to market that in the US 3 years ago. It's one thing to get approval. It's another thing to really make this a successful product. And a successful product basically means that it's being used. An approval in itself is not a guarantee that it is being launched and used. And if you say, okay, I want to use this, I want this product to be used, then there must be a value. You cannot just expect farmers to say, well, let me feed my cattle with Bovaer and I have to buy the Bovaer. But the meat and the milk are actually the same as from a cow that was not fed with Bovaer, because then somehow, why would a farmer buy and use the Bovaer? So somehow there must be a value proposition here, and that is of course an additional. Well, not challenge, but something to be worked out, because the value is that there is less methane emission. That's what you can translate into carbon credits, and then carbon credits then can be used, for example, by CPG companies who actually use it to meet their own sustainability objectives. That's all doable. That's all happening as we speak. It is just an additional step that, additional steps to be all put in place so that the farmers can demonstrate that they use the Bovaer in the right way. That all needs to be validated. We don't want any greenwashing. That then indeed the carbon credits that have been generated by the farmer somehow can be bought and that then makes the equation attractive and feasible, so that all the players in this value chain basically benefit in a fair way. What is clear is that, of course, this all will be more doable and feasible if you come up with a solution to reduce methane that on top of that also provides another benefit. For example, a higher yield or a higher milk yield or a higher protein yield. So to generate additional value on top of the methane reduction, because that makes it more easy to make the overall equation fit, and so that there is an incentive for everyone involved in this value chain to actually pull it forward. So it's a very exciting innovation, still in it, I would say, in its relatively early phase. But you see, every year there's progress to truly make it a large-scale way to farm the animals. And of course, in parallel, there are all kind of new initiatives, but still in a very early phase to see how can we actually reduce methane emission by farming the animals. So, but that's all in a very early phase, and before that will be approved by FDA or other regulatory agencies, that can be years out. So for the time being, there is just a Bovaer. So Bovaer truly is the one that is shaping the field.
Yeah, it's and again, it's it's just a testament to the things that I guess you didn't think you'd be thinking about methane emissions in cattle some years ago, but nonetheless, it's it falls under your responsibilities now, and it's just another example of sort of the scope
Yep.
of the innovation that you have to think about.
Yep.
So it's kind of cool.
And how diverse it is. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
Speaking about that, I mean, we've talked about vaccines, we've talked about monoclonal antibodies a bit. Looking out a little bit into the future, and of course, anyone can go to the Elanco site and see the sort of the partnering interest, and there's not much that isn't on this list. But I couldn't help but notice, a couple of months ago, the really interesting gene therapy press release you did in terms of chronic kidney disease in cats. And again, I just love to get your perspective on where a lot of this is going. Clearly, gene therapy for chronic kidney disease in humans is, tens of billions of dollars alone in the United States. I mean, it's awesome to see, you applying these technologies to cats and other companion animals. But where is, do you think, what excites you, looking a couple of years out with some of this? And then this also touches, this press release touched on the topic of lifespan, and longevity has been kind of a hot topic. Obviously, a lot of what we're talking about today results in longevity of companion and farm animals. But talk a little bit about sort of how you feel about these types of technologies, and what you think about sort of just the general theme of longevity as it pertains to animal health.
Yeah, maybe a couple of comments first. So I think if you look at Elanco, we clearly have expanded our focus in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
We used to be very much a farm animal focused organization. Then we added companion animals. At first, it was very much companion animals in the parasiticide. Now you have seen us adding dermatology. We are focusing on pain. And that's another obvious need. If the pets are having pain, we have a couple pain products, but pain can, of course, needs to be addressed in very different ways, acute or more longer duration. So there are different ways to address that one. So dermatology, pain are new spaces. We just already addressed sustainability as a new space. So those are new spaces where we have innovation in the market or coming in the market. Then we announced recently that we are further widening our scope in a couple areas. One is maybe may sound obvious, but it's still interesting to see that it is kind of a space that hardly exists. That is dermatology for cats. So that is building upon our experience in the dermatology for dogs. Okay, that's obvious. Let's also see what we can do for cats. Two other spaces that are new for us that we are actively focusing on. One is indeed CKD, chronic kidney disease. It's truly an unmet need, especially in cats. Progressive condition. It's loss of the kidney function, and there are no real good solutions there. So we, as well as others, are focusing on that one. And another one that is also of high interest, not only with us, but with a couple other players as well, and also in the startup phase, is obesity. It's one of those areas where, 10 years ago, there were indeed quite a number of overweight cats and dogs, as we all know. But in general, there was the perception like, well, you just feed the animal less and then, problem solved. In the meantime, triggered, of course, by the GLP revolution almost, that has changed. What has changed, indeed, is that people see it's not so easy to just feed less. That's number one. And second, it's also much better understood that, the issue is not just being overweight. It basically is going together with a lot of comorbidities. It is more severe than basically many people did realize until a couple of years ago. So there's truly, I would say, a race going on right now in the animal space, because that is a new opportunity to address overweight cats and dogs, triggered by the GLP progress, of course, in the human pharma. And you see similar trends, the GLPs, or should it be a pill or an injection, and should it be a daily or a weekly, or so there's a lot happening there. Nothing approved, so this is still years out, I would say, before. Well, I definitely expect within the next 5 years, but who knows? So that's another new space. No, then if you say oncology, absolutely is another unmet need. And there are a couple solutions, but the solutions are so specific that in the end, it does not work. You cannot have for every type of cancer have your own specific product. Then in the end, the development versus the use, that balance is just not there. But the need is still there. That is very obvious there, and it's being addressed. But still, I would say in that research phase, development phase. Yes, indeed, the aging topic and gene therapy, those are, in essence, in a more early phase, I would say. You see the technology is being developed. There's still a long way to go before they would reach the finish line. But absolutely, there is a need that people would say, oh, if I can, live together with my pet longer in a more healthy condition, I absolutely would do that. If there is something that can help me doing that. So those are, I would say, don't expect that to be there. Maybe some minor, very niche solutions, but not widely in the next couple of years. But these are just examples. There is so much going on here. Technologies that would not be ready 10 years ago now actually are being investigated. And since we can do it, this overall innovation process so much more effectively than say 10 years ago, we actually can do way more with our dollars than we could do 10, 20 years ago. So in essence, truly, it is an exciting phase right now if you are working in the animal health innovation space, because the unmet needs are very clear, and the technologies that you need to address those, a number of those have advanced to a level that, yes, now they are applicable to the at the right cost and the level for the animal health. And most obvious is the monoclonal anti-space, where, of course, they have been in human pharma for 20 years or so, but obviously, when you want to apply them in the pet space, you have a different cost level that you need to achieve. Sure. And right now, yes, that is at the right level. So the technology has matured. So indeed, those new technologies open up a lot of new opportunities to truly address, the diseases and the needs for the animals. Yep.
Well, it's clearly, as you're pointing out, an extremely exciting time in the coming years for your industry. You sound like you're having fun, and it's clear why you're there, leading the show now with these various initiatives. Ellen, anything else while I have you today that's coming up as we get into the first couple months of 2026 in terms of conferences, talks, other public-facing stuff that you want to mention that I did not touch on? But please, anything else, I'll hand the floor back to you.
No, I think we covered most of it, Ari. I think we had our investor event in December, so where we also shared, where we are and where we want to be. So if anything, as we said, or we also shared with our team, yes, we made a lot of progress in the last couple of years building this innovation engine, I would say. We demonstrated, yes, that we are able to do that. And the interesting part is every time that you have success or bring a product to the finish line, that experience is so relevant. So it is a way to get better and stronger every time. So it's truly like a muscle. If you use your muscle, you get stronger. That's exactly this innovation. So that is why it is so important to continue and don't get distracted and stay focused. That's the best way to get stronger, have more progress, and being able to truly address things that have not been addressed before. And that's one of the reasons why we are excited. Unfortunately, we are in an environment that, it is widely, you don't have to argue, it's widely understood the needs for innovation and also why it is so attractive. This is an innovation. This is an industry that does reward innovation. So from that point of view, it truly is a space where, there is hardly anything more to wish for if you are a scientist working in the industry.
Got it. Well, I wish you and your team the best with all this as you continue to move these discoveries and innovations forward. It's really an exciting time. Again, for everybody out there that's going to be listening to this episode across the various podcast networks or who will be watching on the YouTube channel, again, you've been spending time with Dr. Ellen de Brabander, Executive Vice President, Research, Development, Regulatory Affairs, Elanco Animal Health. Ellen, again, I want to thank you for, again, taking the time out of your busy schedule to come talk to us for a little while and update us on everything that you're doing. Thank you for what you do for all of our companion animals, pets, and farm animals as well, for those that have those. And as we like to say here on our show, thanks for helping to create a better tomorrow for all of them and us as well. Really a great story, and I look forward to continue to follow your work over the coming years.
Great. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Great having you.